Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to our Moms and Money panel hosted by, I'm going to introduce the host momentarily, but brought to us by Next Advisor. I'm Farnoosh Torabi. I'm a contributing editor with Next Advisor, and I'm a mom of two. And oh my gosh, I'm getting so much positive energy from reading all your chats, all of your welcomes and your hellos. They're in true mom fashion. We are multitasking tonight. Some of us are at a baseball game. One person says she's driving, I hope safely, maybe pull over. Another mom is putting her kids to bed. It is going to be an amazing night. I am here to just kick things off and celebrate from the beginning this evening. This is going to be an incredible conversation about motherhood and making money and building wealth. We have an incredible lineup of women who are going to be sharing all of their insights and advice. And my contribution in the beginning, I think I just want to give everybody a little bit of an inside story. So I became a mom 6.5 years ago, and I've been a financial expert my entire career. I've written books. I've done it all. And motherhood was new to me, and I was scared. Truthfully, I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to manage parenthood and running my business. I'm the breadwinner in my marriage. It was very, very overwhelming. And here's the thing I wish someone had told me when I was about to have a kid, which is that motherhood, yes, is going to change everything, but it is an amazing experience, and it can actually be a catalyst to building wealth. That motherhood can actually make you richer. This is something that I personally experienced. And it's an important time to be having this conversation because of what's happening in the world, obviously. So many women and mothers disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, the recession, all the progress that we have made over the decades, from the increase in female breadwinners in marriages, the rise in entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs in this country, more women in the C-suite. We unfortunately are taking a few steps backwards in these last 14 months. It's been really, really hard. So how do we catapult? How do we get ahead? We'll learn tonight. But, for moms, I think one of our innate strengths, right, despite all these struggles, despite systemic problems, despite the economy, despite not having enough affordability in our lives from childcare costs, and you'll learn more tonight. We all have experienced them. Mothers are resilient, right? Why did I become richer as a mom? I became richer because I became sharply focused. I got good at saying no, right? I started to prioritize, and I found my purpose. Motherhood does that too, for better or worse, but I think for better when it comes to your finances. And it's when I started my podcast, because I had to work within limitations. I couldn't be leaving my house all the time. So how can I still make an impact? Podcasting was my solution. So tonight, hopefully we'll walk away with more inspiration, some solutions, motivation, and most importantly, so important, is community. The community element in the motherhood community is like no other tribe. And everything I just discussed about motherhood, all of our superpowers, it is nothing without the engagement of other mothers. And we're going to hopefully gain some friends tonight that we will continue to engage with for the rest of our motherhood and our careers. And without further ado, it's been an honor being here. I'll be watching everything tonight, but without further ado, I want to introduce our hostess for the evening, Janice Torres Rodriguez, who is a leading financial expert, nationally acclaimed Latina money expert, educator, speaker, podcaster. Her podcast is called Yo Quiero Dinero. And she's also a fellow contributor to Next Advisor. And I can't wait to hear the conversation tonight. Janice.
Farnoosh.
How are you?
Wow. I think I can drop dead right now because I just got introduced by Farnoosh Torabi. So life goals are complete. Thank you so much for that introduction.
You're welcome. Of course.
All right, y'all. So we have an amazing conversation in store for you. Thank you to the folks at Next Advisor and Farnoosh. Super excited to be here. And, when we're coming up with the idea for this panel, I think the part of Next Advisor that aligns so much with the mission of my brand, Yo Quiero Dinero, is just highlighting these stories in the personal finance space that don't get told. And I don't know about you, let me know in the chat. Do you see a lot of content for moms in the personal finance space? I personally don't. I don't see a lot of content that is not around like shaming women for spending money or teaching them how to invest. It's all just like, you know, stop spending money, you crazy women. That's why you got none, right? It's like that messaging is so toxic and irrelevant. And so I'm super excited to be here and to have this conversation with these next amazing panelists that I'm going to introduce to you right now. So first off, we have Anna Njai Conte. She is a CFP, a mom of three, and a passionate believer in the economic empowerment of women and minorities in America. She's the founder of Dare to Dream Financial Planning, a financial advisory firm for women of color who are on the path to build wealth and live abundantly. And she's also the host of the First Gen Realness podcast. Thanks for being here, Anna.
Thanks for having me.
Next up, we have Rita Soledad Fernandez Paulino. Soledad is creator of Wealth para Todos, and she is a mom of two and former math teacher turned personal finance enthusiast. While she was on sick leave in 2019, she started to build her financial knowledge, and since then, she has paid off over $20,000 in student loan debt, built a 6-month emergency fund, maxed out multiple retirement accounts, and is now on the path to retire early at age 47. Thanks
Hello,
for being
everybody.
here. Thank you. Shung Saavedra is our next panelist, and she is a personal finance influencer at Save My Cents, who became work optional at age 31. From working on her own side hustles to developing consumer strategy for Fortune 500 companies at her main hustle, Shung has grown her income by multiples and her wealth into 7 figures. And in 2021, she decided to take a step back from the rat race to focus more on her role as a mom. Her mission is to inspire Americans to manage their personal finances with an abundance mindset and live financially free.
Hi, so honored to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. And last but not least, we have Diana King, mom of two and creator of Money Boss Mama. She is a money mindset and budget coach who stumbled into the personal finance world after signing up for an auto loan that took one of her biweekly paychecks. And after becoming debt-free on a moderate income, she is now on a mission to help other single women and moms maximize their 9-to-5 income to get out of debt and build wealth. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. Let's get into these questions, y'all, because we have a lot of ground to cover here. First off, I want to start with you, Soledad, because you have proclaimed yourself the CFO of your family. What does that mean, girlfriend? Let me know.
Yeah, I like to always tell people that I am the chief financial officer of my family. That means that I take care of our spending plans. I make sure we are on track for retirement. We're investing. I manage all the money that comes in and all the money that comes out. I also hold the vision for my family in terms of how we are going to build wealth, not just my husband and I, but also for the kids. So I did that, and I think all of you can do that too.
I love it. All right, so I'd love to hear from the rest of you ladies, and we'll start off with Anna. Anna, why do you think that moms should care about taking on this more proactive role around managing finances?
Yeah, this is like, I'm not going to take up all the time in the world because I could go on about this for days, but I think women just need to have more financial empowerment, period, whether you're a mom or not. But I think it's so important for us to be able to model to our children, especially our girls, right, that they can be financially empowered, make decisions about money, and that it's not something to be fearful of or to delegate to a male partner, right? Which is what our society tends to do. So that's it's just so important to show them what is possible and what they are capable of doing.
Shung, I'd love to hear from you kind of how your relationship with money changed before you became a mom and then after.
Yeah, for me, it didn't change at all because I really believe strongly in managing money, period. But in particular for mothers, fact, women make 80% of the consumer purchases in North America. Whether you call yourself a CFO or not, you're already doing what CFOs do, which is making financial decisions. I just want us to name it, to claim it, and also women outlive men by like 5 to 8 years. So we still got to manage our coins after they all die off and leave us with their money. So
I love that. Diana, how about you? What do you think, especially as a single mom, like why do you think it's even more important to be totally on top of your finances?
As a single mom, like, women or mothers, we play such a huge role in our families, whether we're single or we're married. But as a single mom, most of the time it's on us. It's on us, which is a very scary thing, but it's a very powerful thing because we get to shape the future of our little family, right? And so taking control of our finances allows us to shape the future of our family in the way that we see it in our minds. And we have little human beings that we have to care for, that obviously every mom wants to make sure that their kids have a better future than what they've had. So I think that it's very empowering as a single mom to take control of your finances, because literally your destiny and the destiny of your children are in your hands.
I love that. That is such a powerful message. And I love this comment that Soledad put in the chat. Even if you don't have children, so many of us are serving in that mother figure, whether you are mentoring your nieces or your baby cousins or your little sister. Like, there's so much power in us just helping lift each other up with this knowledge. So whether you are a mom or you're a mother figure, it's important to realize the impact that you can have on somebody's life just by being that example, right? Okay, so let's move on to this thing that I think a lot of us have struggled with, especially women of color. I think a lot of us kind of grow up with negative views of money, right? And that can cause a lot of fear and anxiety and avoidance around money management. So I'd love to hear from all of you, kind of how can we start to unlearn these childhood money traumas so that they can stop preventing us from building wealth? And Diana, we can start off with you.
Yeah, this is such a gentle topic, I feel, especially for women of color and single moms, because a lot of how we view our money, what we say about our money, obviously comes from our upbringing and our experiences. And what I always recommend is that you've got to take a trip back down memory lane. What was your upbringing like? Because whether you are aware of it or not, it plays such a huge role in your relationship with money right now. And there may have been trauma or something that makes it very uncomfortable, but you have to lean into that discomfort in order to take back control and authority over your relationship with money. So once you go back down memory lane, you're probably going to pick up on habits that you have that your parents had or your guardians had. And then the experience is the same, I find, but our perception of it is very different. How you perceive things as a child is very different from how you perceive things as an adult. So even though mom was always saying, I don't have a lot of money, as a child, you're like, oh, we don't have a lot of money. But as an adult, going back through that trip, you're probably like, we didn't have a lot of money, but I always said, I saw mom spend it as soon as it touched her hands, right? And I'm noticing that I'm an impulse spender as well. But once you recognize those things, don't label them as good or bad. You're just simply observing. Once you recognize those things, you take back control. You have that authority to rewrite those money scripts and get rid of those limiting beliefs. And a lot of times I feel like we've got to be honest with ourselves. Who are we? If your name is Samantha, who is Samantha? What does wealth mean to Samantha? How do you define wealth? How do you define yourself? What are your values? And anything that does not align with those values or that definition, you have to learn to reject those things and be okay knowing that you want more and you're deserving of more. But a lot of it comes down to working on your confidence and your faith in yourself, because that's what the entire journey is about, having faith and confidence in yourself. Because if you don't, you wouldn't be on this journey, and you're not going to start it super knowing everything, super confident, but you take that little bit of faith that you have, that seed, and you walk it, and you reject everything that is not aligned with your values and your definition. And as you continue walking and proving to yourself that you can do it, you're watering that seed, and pretty soon you're sitting under a tree, under the shade.
Super powerful. I love that advice, Diana. Xiang, how about you? I know that you talk a lot about money mindset on your platform, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on, how we can be proactive participants in reshaping that money mindset.
Yeah, mental health and financial health are completely intertwined. There's been scientific studies that shown the link between that. I say money is like a knife. If you use it poorly, it can kill you. But if you use it wisely, it will feed you for the rest of your life. And so I really try to help people who grew up with a scarcity mindset to first see money neutrally. I might not get you to abundance mindset right away because it sounds really crazy when you first hear about abundance mindset. But I say money is a tool. You're just learning, you're just getting data about how you've behaved in the past. And then little by little, we take that one little next step. We do things a little bit scared to move to a new mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Soledad, I would love to know from you, because you talk a lot about kind of not getting lost in the journey, right? And enjoying the process of getting to the place where you want to be. And I think that long-term planning can stress people out. So how can we focus not only on our future long-term goals, but also appreciating the process as we go along?
Yeah, I always tell everybody, you set your goals, but you choose to remain grateful in everything that you're currently, facing and currently obtaining, right? So I like to tell everyone, my mantra is poco a poco, todo con tiempo, little by little, everything in good time. And knowing that, when I first was looking at my debt and I saw that we had a negative net worth and we had 2 children, that was really hard. Learning about everything I didn't know, it was really hard, but I had to stay focused on, look, at least I'm in a place right now where I can be learning. At least I have the time to read. At least I have access to, podcasts and YouTube videos. And poco a poco, I am going to continue to learn these skills and I'm going to change our financial trajectory. And I think also what just helped me a lot was community and having other people that I can talk about our money goals to just cheer each other on. Whether it was something as simple as like, hey, I went to Target and I didn't buy anything. Yay! Or like, yay, I maxed out our Roth IRA for the first time. Taking little, celebrating all those little moments makes a big difference.
I love that advice. Anna, so I have a question for you. A 2014 T. Rowe Price annual survey indicated that parents talk about 58% of the time to boys about money versus 50% to girls. So why do you think this knowledge gap exists? And what can moms do to empower their daughters, especially, to be confident with money so that we don't continue to perpetuate these generational cycles of, poverty?
Yeah, I think this has so much to do with traditional gender roles, right? Like the men earn the money, they handle the money. The women have, they're responsible for like the household grocery budget and like not spending too much on clothes and things like that. And so they're relegated to their respective areas, right? And so I think unconsciously we do this with so many areas in our life, not just finances, but we tend to talk to boys in a certain way versus girls. And I think that just perpetuates with finances, right? I think empowering yourself, right, is really if you're a mom, that is the first step to take, right? Whether you have boys or girls. I also think it's important to show boys that like mom handles money and she's good at it. You know what I mean? I won't overestimate the importance for girls and underestimate it for boys, right? I think that's so important because we all know we can't know what's possible until we see it, right? And so for me, I didn't know, I grew up with all the scarcity anxiety things and my mom had that, but I didn't until I saw my aunt doing better with money. I really didn't know that was possible, right? Until I really witnessed that. So if you can start at home, that's even better because those lessons have more time to stick and they're more reinforced.
Excellent advice. Okay, Sheng, you are a recent new mom, and so I'm curious what your thoughts are on how new or expectant moms can plan effectively for the increased costs that come with becoming a mom, right? Things like childcare or unpaid maternity leave. How can we plan for these things without sabotaging our future selves?
Yeah. The one emotion that I hear from many people in the same footsteps as they approach parenthood is guilt. Guilt that children cost so much money and fear that they're not going to be able to afford to care for their children. And I would just like to have everybody who feels that right now to let go of that. Because yes, children cost money because they're an extra mouth to feed. And that is so right. And you shouldn't feel guilty for spending more money compared to somebody who doesn't have children to care for them. And also we talk about caretaking in the comments. This applies to you caring for parents and caring for other people in your household. So get rid of that guilt. And number two, do your research. It's to take away some of the fear around the cost of children is to ask around. There's huge mommy groups, local mommy groups, because costs do vary by region. In New York, I pay $3,000 a month for my kids' daycare. It's a shocking number, but that is actually the same quote that I got from 3 daycares in my area. So I knew that that was what I had to prepare for. I also did take mostly an unpaid year off. And I did take a financial hit, but I try to view it in a positive way. And I say, I get to be with my son for that very first year, which then turned out to be pandemic year. So, it turned out all good anyway. I'm glad I was able to be there for him. And just don't beat yourself up. It's only for a certain amount of time. You can prepare for it. You can save money for it, or you can pare down costs. You can get other people to help, but don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that has felt daunting. When you plan these things, it just can feel like you're never going to make the numbers work. And for single moms especially, Diana, I'd love your thoughts on like the additional stress that, trying to do this all alone, what that looks like and how you relied on your support network to make this a possibility.
Yeah, so I feel like with single moms especially, we're super hard on ourselves because we're coming from a 1-income household instead of a 2-income household. And the first thing you have to do is really define the metric that you're using to measure enough, what being successful is, what having enough money is, what is saving enough, because most of the time we may find that our metric is not aligning with our current reality, and it makes us feel like we're not doing enough, we're not good enough, we don't have enough. You have to give yourself grace, number one, and understand that your circumstances are a lot different from the next person. So you can't define what's enough or what's good enough for you using someone else's metric. But one thing that has helped me tremendously, I will say I didn't have a huge network of support as a single mom. I do have my mom in regards to watching my children, but when it came to finances, literally I was pretty much on my own, and that can make or break a single mom, because maybe not financially, she may feel like financially, but mentally it will break a single mom. But I think the best thing that you could do is be proactive, and then know that you're doing enough. And when you know that you're doing enough, you'll open yourself up to finding more opportunities, and you open yourself up to finding other things that you can do to help push you along. But you've got to start where you are and see what you are as enough, and then it opens you up to kind of moving forward and seeing the opportunities and other things. But be proactive, like sinking funds for clothes and things that you're going to need, and just find a healthy balance within your budget while knowing that you're doing everything that you possibly can, and it's going to be okay. Have faith in yourself.
I love that. Soledad, as a stay-at-home mom, I can imagine that having the I would say audacity to go to your husband and say, look, I'm going to manage the money that you bring here, can potentially be a very contentious conversation, right? So how do you actually navigate the conversation with the partner that is actually working so that, there's not this unequal dynamic in the household?
Well, my husband and I are both first gen. So if I hadn't started investing for him, he was never going to do it. He was 32 years old when he finally started to invest in a 401k. So I think in some ways it was easy for me because my husband just wasn't aware. He's first person in his family to be born here in the United States. He grew up in the projects. So we both came from these, these backgrounds where money wasn't discussed, and we didn't know what we didn't know for so long. So when I started coming forward with this information, he was like, yeah, babe, I trust you. And I think that's a big thing, that we've always thought of our money as our money. When our relationship started, I was the breadwinner while he was studying to become a programmer. And so it's just that dynamic of just, we're gonna make conversation, we're gonna do things together. I mean, if you follow me, you know that there's times when I just maxed out his 401k because I knew he wasn't gonna do it. But, which is not like something I suggest everyone do, but it's also just, you know, having those conversations and knowing that you're building a future together makes a huge difference in having those regular money dates, you know, making sure that you are on the same page.
I love that advice. Maxing out your husband's 401k without his consent. That is love right there. Okay. I will not argue with that. Anna, I'm curious on your thoughts, right? Because a lot of us find ourselves in situations where not only are we raising children, but we're also planning to support our parents. And that's like, you know, what they call the sandwich generation, which can feel very stressful, cause of a lot of anxiety. How do you help your clients navigate through those competing interests? And what's your best advice?
Yeah, I think that's a really hard situation to be in, but I think a lot of us first gen, you know, whether that be first gen Americans or to go to college, face that situation. I think you have to make sure that your own finances are set. I think as moms, we tend to overgive to our children, right, to our own detriment. And so it's really important, as much as it's tempting to say, like, I'm gonna set up their 529s and max that out, like I'll deal with my retirement later, or I'm gonna buy them the new stuff. You have to make sure that you're good there. Same with your parents, right? Because if you are going to provide support, which I think, you know, I'm all for building that in and making that a part of your plan, but you just have to understand what impact that is going to have on your own financial life, because it doesn't help your parents if you are stretching yourself thin on either side and not really able to sustain that over the long term, right? And you know, there are lots of calculators online that you can use to figure out if you're on track for retirement and debt payoff and all of those things. So I think running those for yourself first is really important.
Yeah. Xiang, how about you? What are your thoughts on this? Because I know this is something that you navigate as well.
Yeah, I'm super passionate about this topic. My grandmother got debt-free but never got wealthy. My parents survived mass starvation in Cultural Revolution in China, then became wealthy later in their lives, and I saw them support my grandparents. And then there's me, where I'm supporting my in-laws in the future. I like to think of it in 3 kinds of operating models, none of which is the path you have to do. These are just ideas. There's no perfect way to do this. The first model is pay as you go. So you have a portion of your budget set aside to help other members of your family with each of your paychecks. And some people plan for it, but you meet your own goals, you meet theirs. It might take you a little bit longer to reach your financial goals as a result. The second model, which is what my husband and I did, is wait until we became okay with our finances, then we opened up the floodgates to everybody else. So we saved and figured out how to retire for us. Then all the excess money that we earn now, like, people are still like, why are you still working even though you can retire? I'm like, because I'm working for somebody else's retirement. And so that's the model that we used. A third model can be a combination of these two, but it can also be in kind. So many people are in multi-generational homes where you have your parents or grandparents living with you, other people living with you. You share costs. So it's not like a direct cash transfer, but you help each other out. And I would say we all do our best, but we make sure that we're meeting our goals too, while we're also helping our family.
Love that advice. Okay, let's talk about mom guilt. I have seen it manifest in many different ways, even with my own mom. You know, my sister's a mom, and I feel like we love our moms because they are selfless and they give almost to a fault, but that often means that they sacrifice their own financial well-being for their children. I'd love to hear from each of you. How can we keep mom guilt and like the FOMO of our children not having it all from sabotaging your family's finances? And we can start off with Diana.
Okay, yeah. So to keep FOMO from basically blowing our chances of building wealth, I first have to say, like, FOMO is always going to be there. Like, you're always going to be battling FOMO, but your why should be a lot stronger than that fear of missing out. And one way I like to be intentional is by having super specific goals. So that way I have the vision of the destination I'm trying to get to. So when I see someone having their, living their best life on a beach in Miami, and I'm really wanting to go, I'm like, I've got somewhere to be. This does not align with the vision that I have in my mind. And I know that I've got to hit XYZ goal by this specific day. And my why is to build generational wealth for my children, because I didn't have anything. I wasn't given anything. And I missed out on a lot of time just trying to figure it out. So just understand that FOMO's always going to be there, but you've got to beat yourself at your own mindset game, right? Have a strong why and a strong goal to keep you focused and centered.
I love that. So that you've been very open about the fact that you are a minimalist, which can be sort of controversial in the mom space. Can you tell us what that looks like?
Yeah, so in my family, we wear capsule wardrobes. What I'm wearing is currently rented. And this is something that has made us be very intentional about the things that we bring into our homes. So that has helped us in terms of my kids. Like, they know that we're not going to buy them a toy just because they see it and they want it. It has to literally be something that's going to be put on a list, and eventually maybe on their birthdays, they could ask for it, or if they've earned it. And I think delaying that instant gratification and teaching my kids, like, oh, just because you want it in the moment doesn't necessarily mean that you have to buy it, also helps them with understanding like saving and eventually investing. So our minimalist values of just knowing that, like, what we care most about is our time together. And so less toys, less clothes, less things means less cleaning, which means more time at the park, which means more time doing family adventures. And I think, like Shang said earlier, you got to focus on what you get to do. So being very focused on your values, like Diana said, like, know what's right for your family, and then just build, your life around those values so that it always feels sustainable.
Yeah, I love that. Anna, along these same lines, I see a lot of parents that struggle with, should I be saving for college for my kids versus saving for my retirement? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, retirement is a non-negotiable, right? I have two non-negotiables for finances, is retirement and an emergency fund, right? You cannot start doing for other people before you have those two at least on track, or plan to get them on track, right? And so while it's admirable to want to save your kids the headache of student loans long-term and to give them that leg up in life, I think it needs to really come way after all those other things. You can't put it before. And I think a lot of times what we as moms do is we're trying to compensate for the shortcomings in our own childhood. And so then we overdo for the kids, like, my parents couldn't do this for me, so I'm going to overdo that, which once again is admirable. But if you're sacrificing your own long-term financial health, and it's not worth it, because your kids would much rather mom have enough money to last her the rest of her life than you pay for their college. And then you're like, hey, can I live with you? They don't want that. Like, they would, I'm sure most kids would choose the former.
Yep, absolutely. Shang, what are your thoughts on mom guilt and these competing interests of, trying to provide for everybody while potentially sacrificing your own well-being?
Yeah, well, Soledad took the words out of my mouth. I was going to talk about aiketsu, so gratitude first. Number two is I see my money, the money that I save, as one watering can with tons of different spouts. The biggest spout goes to me, because if I don't care for me, I can't care for anybody else. So there's a big spout of water coming towards me, and a smaller spouts to my kid, smaller spouts to other members of my family. So when I pour, each gets something. The second thing that really helped with FOMO, because I went frugal for like years to get work optional. I was called a cheapskate by some other people on media. To do that, I unfollowed everything that didn't align with my values. And I followed influencers. I muted friends who blogged about their vacations. And like, I knew that it's social media is the iceberg. You see the tip of the iceberg, you don't see what's underneath. In my main hustle, I work with people who are millionaires and billionaires. I work for private investors. They're not any happier than I am, even though they have more money. So why am I trying to chase that? I knew that it was about the gratitude, loving who you are, accepting yourself. I am enough. that allows us to let go of that guilt.
Love it. All right. So let's talk about some of the tools that you ladies are using to build and transfer generational wealth to your children. Diana, let's start off with you. What have you put in place?
Okay, so first things first, I did get my emergency fund fully funded. Like that was super important to me because if something goes wrong, it's all on mama. And I have two little human beings to take care of. So once that was underway, then I moved towards my Roth IRA for me, because like you were saying, sometimes you have to be selfish. You have to come first because you're having to, care for everyone else. So you've got to make sure that you're good. And for my children, they do have custodial accounts. So they do have UGMAs. And that is more so just to gift them whenever they turn 18 or 21. There's not a specific purpose, but just for me, I didn't have anything to help me out at 18. And so I really missed out on a lot of time and struggled. So I do have their custodial accounts, and I have faith that what I'm teaching my children, they will step out into the world with a solid financial foundation and not blow that money. And I've got to step out with that faith. And I also do have a 529 plan because, like anyone else, I don't want my children to get stuck with student loans. I don't. Anything that I can do to help them avoid the pain and struggle that I had, I'm going to do that. And I am hiring my daughter this month through my business so we can get her custodial Roth IRA account open as well.
That is so inspiring. Oh my gosh. How about you, Soledad? What have you put in place for your little ones?
Well, my husband and I started later. So for us, it's really been focusing on our own retirements and also saving for real estate. That's where we kind of hope to help the children. We want to buy a multi-unit property so that they always know que tienen una casa, which will be helpful. I know that we want to encourage them to work at a young age so that they can have their custodial Roth IRAs. We're pushing onto them right now and telling them, look, mommy and papi are focused on their retirement and buying real estate. So you're going to need to be really good at school to get scholarships. There's no scholarships for retirement, so we got to take care of that, So that's where we're at. And then, we want to match their contributions to their custodial Roth IRAs. And, with time in the market, compound interest is going to help them out so much. So, imagine, I started working at 16 years old. Had I been maxing out my Roth IRA at 16, then obviously I wouldn't have had to, be putting so much money in the market now for investing. So we're trying to help with retirement and housing and college. That's going to be on them.
Yeah. And I think that ties back to what Anna said, is just making sure that you have your, your oxygen mask on first, right? Because your kids will thank you innumerably for being able to take care of yourself when you no longer work. That's a stress that they will definitely appreciate.
And
how about you, Anna?
Sorry. I just want to
add
that I think the biggest thing is also financial literacy, and that being the number one thing that we're passing down, that my kids are already aware of, like budgeting, and they're 6, at 6 years old is already like, it's Sunday, it's time for us to look at the budget. And I think developing those habits, that's already a big thing. So even if you're not in a place where you're able to invest for, college savings accounts or other things, know that passing down financial literacy is a game changer as well.
Absolutely. How about you, Anna?
Yeah, so, for us, we are very focused on paying for college, right? And like really getting them set up so that they don't have student loan debts, right? So our primary vehicle has been 529s, but our goal is really to give them like a down payment for their houses, which is no small feat for 3 kids, right? When they get a little older. So, just taxable accounts and figuring out our own creative ways to get that to them when they get to the point that they're going to buy a house, right? It was really important to us to make sure that they understand the value of hard work and what it takes to get there. And so we didn't necessarily want to set up UGMAs or UTMAs for the kids and have it automatically go to them just because they hit 21 or 18, right? We wanted them to say, you're going to hit some milestones. And then at that point, mom and dad are gonna write a check. Until then, like you're gonna, it's contingent and it's ours. So if we wanna go on vacation, we're gonna have some really fabulous vacations at some point.
I love it. And how about you, Shang?
Yeah, at the risk of sounding really privileged, I guess, I don't worry about the financial health of my son because he's gonna be set. I don't worry about him being rich. I worry about him being rich in character. And so what I'm focusing on now is I want to raise him to be a stand-up man who's going to give back to the world. When he starts getting a little bit of allowance for his little chores, he's going to get 3 jars. Give, invest, spend. Give first, then invest in yourself, spend last. So that's the order of operations I'm going to teach him. We have restrictions set in place in our wills and estates. First, we picked a very responsible member of our extended family to be the caretaker if God forbid we die before he reached adulthood. We wanted someone responsible with money. Then we also set in restrictions in saying that he's not going to get it all at once. He's going to get it in bits and chunks as he gets older, and he also needs to meet some milestones. He needs to learn and earn the understanding that money doesn't come freely. So I actually am working now on maintaining a relatively simple lifestyle so that he doesn't grow up thinking that it's just gonna all come at once. But I shared in comments too that there's many ways to pass on wealth, not financial advice, but there's so many ways to do it. Don't worry about getting it right, where I worry about the character more.
That is a powerful message, and I think it's definitely resonating with folks that are here on the call. All right, so before we get into the audience Q&A, I would love to find out each of your best tools or resources for teaching kids about financial literacy, and also where can moms go to learn more about money? Diana, let's start off with you.
Yeah, so a tool that I really like to use, and me and my daughter, she's getting to the point where she likes it, is BusyKid. It's like a chore app that comes with a Visa debit card. And basically it's getting them into the habit of saving or investing, giving, and then having a little bit to spend. And it has paydays every Friday. So it's getting them into like the motion of having a payday. You do your work and it doesn't have to be chores. It can be just you finding opportunities to pay them, and then they're giving, and then they're saving. So with me, that's super important for my daughter. She gets the budgeting aspect, but giving is a little tough for an 8-year-old, as well as putting a portion back, which is why I'm not worried about my kids, in the future with their money in the UGMA account. Also, I think that another great tool, obviously, for teaching kids to anything about money is just opening up the dialogue. Like a lot of us, whenever we became of age, we didn't know anything about money. Our parents was super hush hush, especially in like the people of color community. You just don't talk about that. It's super taboo. Don't you dare say anything about your salary or your debt. But what's not talked about is not normalized. And so we sit and we suffer in silence because we think that it's normal. But when you open them up and expose them to your finances, you take away that shame, and it's empowering, and it lets them know that, if they should go down this route, like it's okay, right? It's okay because it's normalized and you're giving them the opportunity to learn early on. And that's something that kids will take with them forever because they're sponges, and it's going to help them buy back a lot of time when it comes to building wealth.
I love that. And you said that's BusyKid, correct?
BusyKid, yes.
Awesome. How about you, Soledad? What are some of your best tools or resources for financial literacy, both for kids and moms?
I'm a huge fan of libraries and books. There are actually quite a few children books. Recently, we've been on Hoopla, which is an app that allows you to read books for free. It connected to your library card, and also Kindle Unlimited via Amazon allows you to access like a lot of digital books. And my 3-year-old learned about pennies, quarters, dollars, and saving from these books. And I also really like that there are authors who are people of color creating these books too. So my kids also see themselves in this literature. And then also like investing, I think I was reading them investing books to help me get comfortable with getting rid of my fear of investing. And then I'm a big fan of like community groups. We have, Jen Hemphill in the audience, and she has this wonderful community for people trying to build wealth. I think finding your social media platforms that talk about dinero. I know I've learned from all of the panelists on this channel, and just connecting with people. I think it's so important to make sure you have that community where talking about money is normal.
Love it. Anna?
Yeah, so I think you'll appreciate this one, Ginny. So there's one called Kids and Money. It's a book series that you can read, and it depends on the age of your child, right? But I think it's a good one. But Biz Kids is one that'll teach kids about entrepreneurship, right? I am fully on the entrepreneurship game, and I think we need to really empower our kids to see that it doesn't have to be a job if they don't want it to, right? So that's a huge one that allows them to play different games and like learn about how to build a business, and it has different exercises and stuff. It's really cool.
Oh, I gotta check that out. That might be a Christmas gift for this year. Shang?
One book that I love that talked about the mindset of passing personal finance knowledge to the next generation is The Millionaire Next Door. Great book. It has a long chapter about teaching that to your children on a philosophical level. For me, I benefited greatly from learning from my parents. The Chinese culture actually is very open and transparent about money. It's almost too nosy. So my parents always talked about money growing up. But the thing that allowed me to learn it was they showed me what they did. My dad sat at the kitchen table every Friday to balance a budget. I didn't know what it was at first, but I knew that he was doing this like yellow paper thing going on. We had income on one side, expenses on the other. My mom clipped coupons, right? She clipped coupons, she comparison shopped, and she took me on all those trips because, no babysitting, drove me nuts. But I saw all the actions my parents took to be frugal. My dad negotiated on the phone with the cable TV company and phone companies and had me sit there because his English wasn't so good. So I learned from them, and they explained to me as I got older and older the rationale behind what they did. And that gave me the foundation to have confidence in making my own decisions. And I hope to pass that to my child as well.
Ladies, this has been an amazing conversation. So now we're going to move into the Q&A portion. I think I'll give this first question to Anna. So Lorena's asking, I have two teenage boys, 16 and 18. The 18-year-old cannot keep a penny to his name. The 16-year-old is much better with saving. Same parents, same message. How can I help my oldest be better with money?
Yeah, so this is where my tough love thing comes in, right? At some point, you have to let him feel the consequences of that, right? You give him the information, provide some of these resources we've been talking about, and if he continues to, not do what you've shown him and brought him up to do, then he has to just face the consequences of that, whatever that may be. You decide what that looks like for your family. But, I think a lot of times I didn't really realize the full magnitude of the mistakes I was making as a younger person until I had to feel the pain. And when my mom helped me out of those is when I just continued to do them, right? So I really had to learn, and I know it's painful as a mom. Like you don't want to see your baby suffer, and you just want to come and, just like when they're little, kiss their knee and rub their head and tell them they're cute. But we have to let them feel the pain.
Absolutely. It's always a lesson that comes from that struggle. So, I think that's such an important point. Okay, this next question is for you, Shang. So what would you say is a checklist in order of what accounts to open for a child? I'm thinking custodial investment, custodial high yield savings, and custodial IRA. Is there a good way to look at it?
Yeah, very good question. It does in some way depend on whether you think your child is going to go to college, because I know college is not for everybody, and also whether you anticipate that you want to apply for financial aid. That's the number one question I would ask back, because if you do intend to apply for financial aid, if your child has a lot of assets to their name, it would affect their chances for financial aid, even more so if compared to the assets being under your name. So if you want them to qualify for more financial aid, don't put too much money in their name. Start with that. That being said, though, in general, if you want them to have the money right away, it needs to be in as free of an account as possible, so like a bank account. If you want them to have the money for school, then the 529s, the ESA Coverdell make a lot more sense. If you want them to not be able to touch the money until they retire, you put that into an IRA where they're like, well, I can't get it until 59 and a half, unless they know the backdoor way to do it. But that's the other way to do it. So it really depends on the goals.
Excellent advice. Okay, this next question is for you, Soledad. So moms of color have a lot of odds stacked against us. Lack of equity in education, the workplace, and money. What's one piece of encouragement that you would have to face these types of issues?
I totally think that it's important for us to always acknowledge all the systemic factors that impact our ability to build wealth. And I know for myself, the more I learn about the history of wealth in this country, who has had access to it, who has been denied it, right? It allows me to have a lot more compassion for myself and for my sisters, right? And for my gente. So I think it's important that, know your history, so that you know that it's not such an individual thing, although that's what we're always told, especially in the personal finance space. It's always like this idea of like, pick yourself up from the bootstraps. Well, some of us have been denied those bootstraps, and our ancestors were denied those bootstraps. So understanding your history and understanding that like it's not always an individual thing, but rather something that has affected communities in different spaces, I know keeps me empowered. Because then I'm just like, and I'm gonna succeed anyway, and I'm doing this for everyone. So
I love it. The rallying cry has been heard for sure. All right, this next question is for you, Diana. So as a new single mom of two trying to get out of debt, what would you recommend should be the sequence of milestones I should work on achieving after getting out of debt?
Okay, so I think when you finally get out of debt, you need to, of course, take a look at your emergency fund, especially if throughout your debt-free journey, you had the recommended $1,000, a couple of $1,000. You want to get yourself to at least 6 to 12 months worth of living expenses, because the worst thing that you can do is get out of debt and then get right back into it because something happens. Because you're a single mom, I'm assuming like you're probably having one income, even if the other person is helping out. Still in your household, you're responsible for your household. That household is all on your shoulders. So to give yourself some confidence going forward, make sure that your emergency fund is fully funded, and then go straight into your wealth building. Because like everyone's saying on this panel, you've got to come first. You can't give what you don't have. So look into, just depending on your goals, accounts that you can use to build wealth. It can just start with a simple 401k. If you are able to participate in a 401k, it can be a Roth IRA coupled together with a 401k. If you want to get into investing in stocks or mutual funds. It just depends on your goals. But I say that the most important thing is to get your emergency fund up and then go straight into wealth building before you then go into building wealth for your children.
Amazing. All right, we have one last question, and I'd love to hear from all of you. What's the biggest financial obstacle you had to overcome as a mom, and what did you learn about yourself as a woman? Let's start off with you, Anna.
Oh, this is a big one. I had my daughter, and I was already working in the financial services industry, but I didn't really realize just the magnitude of how I was going to feel pulled in multiple directions, right? I had the realities of managing childcare and, trying to pay off my own debt and achieve my own personal financial goals, while also, climbing the corporate ladder and trying to do well for my daughter, right? Feeling like there just was not enough money and I was not effectively prepared for that, right? And what it really taught me was that I'm so much more resilient than I thought, right? And I'm a lot more scrappy and resourceful than I thought I was, right? And I was over here doing all the research and figuring out ways to, I don't know, send cash back to the 529, right? I was doing all of those things just to stretch that as much as possible to ensure that not only me and my husband were good, but also that we were setting our daughter up for success, right? It just taught me so much about how I can figure everything out if I put my mind to it.
Chung?
Yeah, kind of fulfilling the stereotype of more money doesn't make you happier. For me, it was feeling like that was late to becoming a mom. I had infertility for many years. My son is an IVF baby, and I took that extra year off and the pandemic hit. When I came back to my company, there were people who I used to manage who had now risen to the same title that I had. And it killed me because I was like, oh my gosh, I am behind. And it took me a really long time to realize that that was a lie that I told myself. And that yes, relative to this person, I'm behind in one area of my life, but I have so much to celebrate. And I think we beat ourselves up too much because of all the responsibilities placed upon us the moment we become a mother. And I've been seeking forgiveness and I've been self-caring ever since to get rid of that toxic mindset.
That's powerful stuff right there. Soledad?
I didn't think about the cost of motherhood. I did not have that planned out. So I was living in New York City, had already started to fix up a nursery in New York City when one morning I woke up and decided I was going to move back to Los Angeles, so cross country. And husband came with me, and when we moved to here, we didn't have, the house that we thought we were gonna live in fell through. So we ended up living on my best friend's sofa. Like that's where I was sleeping. My husband was sleeping on the sofa, I was in the bed with her. And that time in my life made me realize like, whew, motherhood is gonna change in terms of your personality. You do need to plan things a lot more in advance. And it hurt me, or it was a struggle for me to balance between how do I still remain Soledad, but also be a mom who doesn't, put her kids in like unnecessary situations. So that balancing my desire for spontaneity while also wanting security for my kids has been my ongoing struggle. Like, I'm Soledad before I'm a mom, but being a mom is so important. So that's how I'm always growing.
Yeah. Diana?
I think the biggest challenge that I had to overcome was myself, because we're often our biggest critic. We're often our own roadblocks. And so I had to learn. And one thing that I always say was crazy, the biggest thing that I learned about my debt-free journey was the fact that who I was when I started my financial journey was not going to be the person who came out of it. I came out of it a completely different person, because the journey, you're not only taking a financial journey, but it's like a mental journey as well. You start off kind of timid, you don't know if you can do it, you're lacking confidence. And then as you progress, you see those wins, like you start feeling like, I'm that girl, I'm doing it, I'm this woman and I can do it if I put my mind to it. And so I think that my mindset was something that I had to beat. I had to beat those limiting beliefs at their own game in order to get to where I am right now, and just to realize that just because I'm debt free doesn't mean that the mindset work stops. I'm still having to battle myself in these limiting beliefs literally every single day. And as long as you practice mindfulness every single day and stay consistent, then you're going to get the results that you desire.
Ladies, I want to thank you on behalf of Next Advisor for this amazing conversation. I want to thank you for your knowledge, for your transparency, and for your honesty, because this is more of what we need in the personal finance space. And, I think there's a lot of gems that were dropped here, y'all. So make sure that if you want to watch the replay, make sure you subscribe to Next Advisor's YouTube channel so you can check it out and share it with all of your friends and family. Make sure you follow them on social, as well as these amazing women. Their handles are right there on their Zoom backgrounds. And last but not least, do not forget to follow Next Advisor on Instagram. They're going to be hosting a conversation with Dominique Broadway, an IG Live on Tuesday, May 11th. And she's actually in the process of making her toddler a millionaire. So you don't want to miss that conversation and find out what she's doing to make that happen. So once again, thank you so much for being here. And make sure you subscribe also to the Next Advisor newsletter so you can find out when the next amazing webinar is going to be. Thank you all and have a great night.